The alarm echoed through the metal corridors of the Galactic Defense Academy. Red lights flashed in every section as the emergency message played over and over. Code yellow in Section C. All cadets remain in designated areas. Security teams to Section C immediately. Elena Vasquez walked faster toward her class. She was already 10 minutes late for advanced xenobiology, and Professor Zektar did not like when students arrived after the lesson started. The tall human cadet carried her datapad close to her chest as she moved through the empty hallway. Most other cadets had already reached their classes or returned to their rooms as ordered. The academy was huge. It floated in space between 3 different star systems, serving as a training ground for the galaxy's future peacekeepers. Students came from over 50 different species, each living in special areas designed for their needs. Some needed high gravity, others low gravity. Some breathed different gases or needed different temperatures. Elena still found it amazing that so many different life forms could work together in one place. She had been at the Academy for only 3 months. Earth had joined the Galactic Alliance just 2 years ago, making humans the newest members. Most other species had been part of the Alliance for hundreds or thousands of years. Elena often felt like everyone was watching her, waiting to see if humans could really belong here. As she turned the corner toward Section C, she heard something that made her stop. It was not the usual Academy sounds of humming machines and quiet conversations. This was different. She heard shouting, electronic beeping, and underneath it all a low growling sound that made the hair on her arms stand up. Elena knew she should go to her class. The announcement had been clear about staying away from Section C, but curiosity got the better of her. She moved quietly toward the main corridor that connected all the Academy sections. What she saw made her freeze in place. 3 massive creatures prowled the wide hallway. They looked like a mix between Earth's big cats and something from a nightmare. Each one was about the size of a large tiger, but their bodies were sleeker and more muscular. Their fur was deep purple with silver stripes that seemed to shimmer under the Academy lights. Most frightening were their claws, long, crystal clear, and sharp enough that Elena could see scratch marks in the metal walls where they had walked. Kythera cubs. Elena had read about them in her xenobiology studies, but seeing them in person was completely different. Even as youngsters, they were apex predators from a world where only the strongest survived. Adult Kythera were known throughout the galaxy as the most dangerous warriors in existence. Around the cubs, Elena could see security teams from different species trying to contain the situation. Blue-skinned Altarians held energy barriers that flickered and sparked each time a cub got close. Insectoid Zekmari security officers sprayed pheromone clouds that were supposed to calm aggressive animals. A team of rock-like granite warriors stood in formation with sonic weapons that made high-pitched whining sounds. Nothing was working. In fact, the cubs seemed to be getting more angry with each attempt to stop them. Their growling got louder, and they moved in a coordinated pattern that Elena recognized from nature documentaries about pack hunters. They were not just 3 separate animals. They were a team. In the center of the corridor, Elena could see a group of smaller cadets pressed against the wall. They were from the Veal species, mouse-like beings who were excellent engineers but very small and fragile. The cubs had noticed them and were slowly moving closer, their predator instincts clearly activated by the fear they could sense. "Increase the sonic frequency," ordered Security Chief Mordak, a large purple being with multiple arms. Pattern 7 Alpha. The whining sound got louder and higher, but the cubs just shook their heads and continued stalking toward the trapped cadets. One of the Veal students started crying, a high-pitched sound that seemed to excite the predators even more. "The sonics are not working, Chief," reported one of the granite warriors. His rocky face showed confusion. "Standard procedures indicate we should move to Containment Level 3. Elena knew what that meant. Containment Level 3 involves stun weapons and force fields strong enough to knock out the cubs. But it also meant risk of serious injury to the young Kythera. If they were hurt, it could damage the delicate relationship between their species and the Alliance. The lead cub, slightly larger than the other 2, raised its head and let out a call that was part roar, part howl. The sound echoed through the metal corridor and made everyone step back. Even the security teams looked nervous now. The cub's crystal claws extended further, and Elena could see that its eyes had changed from yellow to bright orange, a sign of extreme aggression that she had read about. "Chief, we need to evacuate this section," said one of the Altarian officers. "Call for backup from the senior instructors." But Elena could see that there was no time. The cubs were only a few steps away from the terrified Veal cadets. Their body language showed they were about to attack. Every instinct they had was telling them these small, scared creatures were prey. She knew she should stay back. She knew she should let the trained security teams handle this. She was just a human cadet from a species that had barely discovered faster-than-light travel. What could she possibly do that all these experienced officers could not? But as she watched the scene unfold, something deep in her mind started working. It was not logical thinking or anything she had learned from books. It was older than that, something that came from deep in her human DNA. She looked at the cubs and their hunting pattern, watched how they moved and communicated with each other, and suddenly she understood. They were not just angry or scared. They were doing what they were born to do, hunt. But they were young and confused, surrounded by creatures they did not understand using methods that made no sense to predator minds. The energy barriers and sonic weapons and pheromone clouds were not tools that predators used. They were the methods of prey animals, of species that had learned to hide and confuse rather than face threats directly. The cubs did not respect these methods because they came from a world where respect was earned through strength and direct confrontation. They were looking for something they recognized, something that spoke their language. Elena made a decision that everyone later said was either very brave or very stupid. She stepped forward past the security teams into the main corridor where the three young predators prowled. Every officer shouted at her to get back, but she ignored them all. The cubs noticed her immediately. They turned as one, their orange eyes focusing on this new target. Elena was alone in the middle of the hallway with no weapons, no barriers, no protection at all. Just a human cadet in a simple gray uniform, standing between three apex predators and their prey. What happened next would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about humanity. But in that moment, Elena was not thinking about galactic politics or interspecies relations. She was thinking about three confused, angry young hunters who just needed someone to speak their language. She looked at the lead cub, met its orange eyes directly, and did something that no one expected. She smiled. Elena's smile was not the kind humans usually showed to be friendly or polite. It was something much older and more dangerous. Her lips pulled back to show her white teeth, and her eyes stayed locked on the lead cub's orange gaze. For the first time since the crisis began, the corridor fell completely silent. The three cubs froze in place. Their prowling stopped, their growling died away, and their crystal claws slowly retracted. The lead cub tilted its massive head to one side, studying this strange new creature that had appeared in their territory. "What is she doing?" whispered Security Chief Mordak. His multiple arms trembled as he watched the human cadet stand face to face with apex predators that could tear her apart in seconds. Elena did not hear the whispers behind her. Every bit of her attention focused on the three young hunters in front of her. She kept her smile steady and began to move, but not in any way the security teams expected. She did not back away or try to make herself look bigger. Instead, she moved like a predator herself, smooth, controlled, confident. She took one slow step to the right. The cub's eyes followed her movement. Then she took a step to the left. They tracked her again, but their aggressive posture began to change. Their hackles lowered slightly and their tails stopped lashing back and forth. Elena could sense what was happening, even if she could not explain it in words. The cubs had expected her to act like the other species, to use barriers, sounds, or chemicals to try to control them from a distance. Instead, she was engaging with them directly, personally, the way another predator would. She took another step, this time forward. The security teams behind her gasped, certain they were about to witness a terrible attack. But the cubs did not charge. Instead, the lead cub took a step back, not in fear but in a kind of cautious respect. Elena slowly raised her right hand, palm facing up. It was not a gesture of surrender or submission. Her posture remained strong and confident. Her smile never wavered. The gesture said something different, recognition between equals. The lead cub stared at her hand for a long moment. Then, moving very carefully, it approached. Each step was deliberate and measured. When it got close enough, it lowered its great purple head and sniffed her palm. Elena felt the creature's breath on her skin, warm and surprisingly sweet. Up close, she could see that the cub's eyes had changed from angry orange back to curious yellow. Its crystal claws had fully retracted, and the dangerous tension in its muscles had relaxed. Impossible, breathed Dr. Kethvar, the insectoid xenopsychologist who had arrived with the backup security team. His compound eyes reflected the corridor lights as he tried to understand what he was seeing. The cubs are showing deference behavior, but humans have no documented predator recognition pheromones. The second cub, slightly smaller than the first, began to approach Elena as well. She extended her left hand toward it, while keeping her right hand steady for the lead cub. Her smile widened slightly, showing more of her teeth, and both cubs seemed to respond positively to this display. Elena felt something she had never experienced before. It was as if a part of her mind that had been sleeping was suddenly awake. She could read the cubs' body language like words on a page. She understood their pack dynamics, their hierarchy, their needs. More importantly, she could sense that they understood her in return. The third cub, the smallest of the group, was still focused on the terrified Veal cadets pressed against the wall. Elena noticed this and turned slightly to look at it. She did not speak. The cubs would not understand human words anyway. Instead, she made a soft sound in her throat, almost like a growl but gentler. The small cub's head snapped toward her. Elena looked directly at it and shook her head once, slowly. The message was clear: no, not prey. Leave them alone. To everyone's amazement, the cub obeyed. It turned away from the Veal students and padded over to join its siblings near Elena. All three cubs now stood in a loose semicircle around her, their attention completely focused on the human who somehow spoke their language. Elena began to walk slowly toward the side corridor that led back to the Cathara section of the academy. She did not look back to check if the cubs were following. She knew they would be. Her whole body projected confidence and control, the bearing of a pack leader who expected to be obeyed. The cubs fell into formation behind her, moving in the coordinated pattern of a hunting pack. But now, instead of stalking prey, they were following their new pack leader to safety. "She's leading them back," said one of the Altarian security officers. His blue skin had turned almost white with shock. "How is she doing that?" Security Chief Mordak was already speaking into his communication device. "Command, this is Mordak. The situation in Section C is under control. Repeat, Code Yellow is resolved. The human cadet has—" I am not sure how to explain this in my report. As Elena reached the entrance to the Cathara section, she paused. The cub stopped behind her, waiting for her next command. She turned to face them and nodded once, a gesture of respect and dismissal. The lead cub made a soft, chirping sound that might have been gratitude, then led its pack siblings through the doorway and back to their proper area. Elena watched them go, then turned to face the crowd of security personnel and academy staff who had witnessed the entire event. Her predatory smile faded, replaced by the normal expression of a confused young cadet who was not entirely sure what had just happened. She started to say, then stopped. How could she explain something she did not fully understand herself? "I just thought they needed someone to treat them like equals, I guess, instead of problems to be solved." Dr. Kethvar stepped forward, his insectoid features showing intense curiosity. "Cadet Vasquez, what you just accomplished should have been impossible. Cathara cubs only respond to dominance displays from their own species, or creatures they recognize as apex predators. No other species in the Alliance has ever achieved what you just did." Elena shrugged, feeling suddenly tired. The adrenaline that had carried her through the confrontation was wearing off, leaving her shaky and uncertain. "I don't know, sir. I just looked at them and knew what to do. Like an instinct or something." "Instinct," repeated Dr. Kethvar slowly. His compound eyes glittered with scientific interest. "Yes, that is a very interesting choice of words, Cadet. Very interesting indeed." Security Chief Mordak approached Elena, his multiple arms spread in a gesture of respect. "Cadet Vasquez, what you did today saved lives and prevented a serious diplomatic incident. The Academy will want to study this event carefully." Elena nodded, though part of her just wanted to return to her normal routine and forget the whole thing had happened. But as she walked back toward her delayed xenobiology class, she could not shake the feeling that something fundamental had changed, not just in how others saw her, but in how she saw herself. Behind her, she could hear Dr. Kethvar already making plans for interviews and studies. But Elena's mind was elsewhere. thinking about three young predators who had recognized something in her that she was only beginning to understand about herself. 3 days after the incident, Elena found herself sitting in Dr. Kethvar's laboratory for the 5th time. The insectoid scientist had run every test he could think of, from blood samples to brain scans to pheromone analysis. The results were always the same. Nothing unusual about human biology that could explain what had happened. I must admit, Cadet Vasquez, you are quite the puzzle, Dr. Kethvar said as he reviewed the latest test results on his data screen. His forearms moved independently as he worked, taking notes and adjusting instruments. Your biochemistry shows no trace of predator recognition compounds. Your pheromone signature is typical for your species, yet the cubs responded to you as they would to a Caithra pack leader. Elena shifted uncomfortably in her chair. She had missed most of her regular classes this week, due to all the testing and interviews. Other cadets stared at her in the hallways, whispering among themselves about the human who could control deadly predators. Some looked at her with new respect, others with fear. Maybe it was just luck, Elena suggested, though she did not really believe it herself. Maybe the cubs were getting tired and would have calmed down anyway. Dr. Kethvar's compound eyes focused on her with laser-like intensity. Cadet, I have studied Caithra behavior for over 20 years. What you did was not luck. Those cubs were in full hunting mode, completely focused on the Veal students as prey. In that state, they would not have stopped until they had killed or been killed. You broke through that instinct with nothing but a smile in your presence. Before Elena could respond, an alarm chimed in the laboratory. Dr. Kethvar checked his communication panel and his antennae twitched with excitement. Fascinating. It seems we have an opportunity for further observation. The cubs have broken containment again, but this time they are not causing chaos. According to the security report, they are simply sitting in Corridor 7, refusing to move. They will not respond to any commands or incentives. Elena felt a strange pull in her chest, like something was calling to her. Corridor 7 is near the human section of the academy. Indeed. And the cubs arrived there approximately 10 minutes after your normal class schedule would have taken you through that area. Dr. Kethvar stood up, his excitement obvious. They are looking for you, Cadet. This provides an excellent chance to study the interaction under controlled conditions. Elena wanted to refuse. The attention was making her uncomfortable, and she just wanted to return to being a normal student. But the pull she felt was getting stronger, and she found herself curious about the cubs as well. Had they really come looking for her? 20 minutes later, Elena stood at one end of Corridor 7 while Dr. Kethvar and a team of researchers observed from behind a transparent barrier. At the far end of the corridor, the 3 Caithra cubs sat in perfect formation, their yellow eyes fixed on her with obvious recognition and pleasure. The moment Elena appeared, all 3 cubs began making soft chirping sounds, the same happy noise the lead cub had made when she dismissed them 3 days ago. Their tails swished back and forth, and their body language showed none of the aggressive tension from their previous escape. Remarkable, whispered Dr. Kethvar into his recording device. The cubs show clear signs of pack-bonding behavior toward the human subject. This should not be possible without shared evolutionary history. Elena walked slowly toward the cubs, and they stood to meet her, but instead of the careful predatory movements from their first encounter, they approached her like excited pets greeting a beloved owner. The smallest cub actually rubbed against her leg, purring like an enormous cat. They missed me, Elena said with surprise. She reached down to scratch behind the small cub's ears, and it leaned into her touch with obvious pleasure. They actually missed me. Dr. Kethvar was frantically taking notes. Cadet, try giving them a simple command. Something basic like sitting or staying. Elena looked down at the 3 young predators gathered around her. The lead cub was almost as tall as her waist, and all of them could easily overpower her if they chose to. But they looked at her with trust and expectation, waiting for her guidance. Sit, she said firmly, making a downward gesture with her hand. All 3 cubs immediately sat, their crystal claws retracting fully and their posture relaxed but attentive. Elena felt a rush of amazement at their instant obedience. Now try something more complex, Dr. Kethvar suggested. See if they will follow a specific movement pattern. Elena thought for a moment, then began walking in a large circle around the corridor. The cubs fell into formation behind her, the lead cub directly behind her, the other 2 flanking them in a perfect triangle. When she stopped, they stopped. When she changed direction, they adjusted their positions to maintain the pattern. This is unprecedented, Dr. Kethvar muttered. They are treating her as their pack alpha, following advanced tactical formations that young cubs should not even know. Elena was enjoying herself now, amazed by the cubs' intelligence and responsiveness. She decided to try something more challenging. She pointed to 3 different spots along the corridor walls and made a spreading gesture with her hands. The cubs looked where she pointed, then at each other, then back at her. After a moment of what seemed like silent communication, each cub moved to one of the positions she had indicated. They sat facing outward, creating a perfect perimeter around Elena. "Guard formation," breathed one of Dr. Kethvar's assistants. "They have placed themselves to watch for threats from all directions. That is advanced pack behavior that takes adult Kithara years to master." Elena called the cubs back to her with a simple whistle, and they immediately abandoned their positions to cluster around her again. She was beginning to understand that her connection with them went far deeper than simple animal training. Somehow they recognized her as one of their own kind. "Dr. Kethvar," she said slowly. "What if the tests are looking for the wrong things? What if it is not about pheromones or biochemistry? What if it is something else entirely?" The scientist's antennae twitched thoughtfully. "What do you mean, Cadet?" Elena looked down at the cubs, who were watching her with intelligent, patient eyes. "You said they see me as an apex predator. But maybe that is not about what I am physically. Maybe it is about how I think, how I move, how I see the world. Behavioral recognition rather than biological," Dr. Kethvar mused. "That would explain why our tests show nothing unusual. But it would also suggest something very interesting about human evolution." "What do you mean?" Dr. Kethvar was quiet for a long moment, his multiple arms moving as he worked through the implications. "Cadet, most species in the Alliance evolved as prey animals or omnivores. We developed intelligence and technology to overcome our physical limitations. Even species that became apex predators on their worlds did so through size, venom, or overwhelming numbers. Very few evolved as persistence hunters, predators that use intelligence, teamwork, and relentless pursuit to bring down prey." Elena felt something click into place in her mind. "And the Kithara?" "The Kithara are persistence hunters. They evolved to track prey across continents, to work as coordinated packs, to never give up once they have chosen a target. Their intelligence developed specifically to support their hunting strategies." Dr. Kethvar's compound eyes focused on her intently. "If humans evolved similar traits, the cubs would recognize you as a kindred species, regardless of your physical differences." The idea sent a chill down Elena's spine. She thought about human history, how her ancestors had hunted mammoth across ice ages, how they had spread across entire continents pursuing herds, how they had never stopped pushing forward no matter what obstacles they faced. "You think humans are predators like the Kithara?" "I think, Cadet Vasquez, that the galaxy may have greatly underestimated what humans truly are, and these cubs are the first to recognize it." As if responding to his words, the lead cub stood and approached Elena. It looked up at her with those intelligent yellow eyes and made a soft sound that was almost like a purr. Then it pressed its massive head against her hand in a gesture of complete trust and acceptance. Elena realized that everything was about to change, not just for her but for all of humanity's place in the galaxy. Word about Elena's connection with the Kithara cubs spread through the Academy faster than a solar flare. By the end of the week, delegations from 3 different species had arrived to observe the phenomenon. The Academy's command staff held emergency meetings about the diplomatic implications, while cadets from dozens of species whispered theories in the corridors. Elena tried to maintain her normal routine, but it was impossible. Every time she walked through the common areas, conversations stopped. Some cadets looked at her with new respect, others with barely concealed fear. The Veal students she had helped rescue brought her small gifts and bowed when they saw her, which made her deeply uncomfortable. It was during her advanced combat theory class that everything changed again. The class was practicing tactical scenarios when the door opened with a sharp hiss. Every cadet in the room turned to see who had entered, then immediately stood at attention. Even Instructor Veltoth, a massive granite warrior who feared nothing, straightened his rocky shoulders in respect. Combat Master Silthane filled the doorway like a living shadow. The adult Kithara stood nearly 3 meters tall, her purple and silver fur marked with the scars of countless battles. Her crystal claws were fully extended, not in threat but in the formal display of a Kithara warrior. Her eyes, deep orange with flecks of gold, swept the room until they found Elena. You, she said, her voice a low rumble that seemed to vibrate through the floor. Human cadet, come with me. Elena felt every pair of eyes in the room watching her as she walked toward the legendary warrior. Combat Master Sylthane had never been defeated in single combat, had led Kythera forces in the Great Expansion Wars, and was said to have killed a void serpent with nothing but her claws and determination. She was also known for never showing respect to any non-Kythera. The rest of you, continue your exercises, Sylthane commanded without taking her eyes off Elena. This does not concern you. The corridor outside the classroom seemed smaller with the massive Kythera warrior in it. Elena had to look up to meet her eyes, and she fought the instinct to step back from the apex predator. Instead, she did what had worked with the cubs. She stood her ground and met that intense gaze directly. Sylthane studied her for a long moment, then began walking toward the Academy's observation deck. Elena followed, her heart pounding but her step steady. Other cadets and staff members pressed themselves against the walls as they passed, giving the combat master plenty of space. The observation deck offered a view of the stars and the 3 distant suns that the Academy orbited. It was normally a peaceful place where cadets came to study or think. With Sylthane present, it felt like a battlefield. My cubs refuse to train with their proper instructors, Sylthane said without turning around. They sit in their chambers and wait. When I ask what they wait for, they show me images of you on their learning displays. They have bonded with you, human. Elena was not sure if she was being accused of something or simply informed. I never meant for that to happen, Combat Master. I just wanted to help when they were scared and confused. Scared? Sylthane turned to face her, and Elena saw something unexpected in those golden-orange eyes. Amusement. Human cadet, those cubs were not scared. They were hunting. They had chosen prey and were preparing to kill. You stopped a hunt with nothing but your presence. Elena started, then stopped. She realized she had been thinking about the incident wrong. I thought they were just lost and upset. No, they were doing what Kythera do, following their nature as apex predators. But you spoke to that nature in a way they understood and respected. Sylthane began walking again, this time in a slow circle around Elena. Tell me, human, what do you see when you look at me? Elena felt like she was being tested, though she was not sure what the right answer might be. She looked at the massive warrior, the scars, the powerful muscles, the predatory grace in every movement. I see someone who has earned their position through strength and skill. Someone who never backs down from a challenge. A hunter who knows exactly what they are and is comfortable with their nature. Sylthane stopped circling and faced Elena directly. And what do you think I see when I look at you? Elena thought about the past week, about how the cubs had responded to her, about the strange certainty she had felt when dealing with them. I think you see something that reminds you of your own species, something predatory. Yes. The simple word carried weight like a physical blow. But more than that, I see a hunter who does not yet know what she truly is. Sylthane moved to the observation deck's railing and gestured for Elena to join her. They stood side by side looking out at the stars, predator and predator. Most species in this galaxy evolved as prey, Sylthane continued. They learned to hide, to run, to use tools and numbers to overcome stronger enemies. Even those that became apex predators did so through accident, size, poison, or overwhelming reproduction. They do not understand the true hunt. Elena listened carefully, sensing that this was important beyond anything she had learned in her academy classes. But Kythera understand. We evolved to track prey across entire continents, to work as coordinated packs, to never give up, never stop, never rest until the hunt is complete. It is not just how we feed, it is who we are. Sylthane's eyes glowed in the starlight, and when my cubs look at you, they see another true hunter. But humans aren't like Kythera, Elena protested. We're not that powerful or dangerous. Sylthane made a sound that might have been laughter. Human, your species conquered an entire planet using nothing but persistence and intelligence. You hunted creatures 10 times your size by simply refusing to give up. You spread across continents and oceans because nothing could stop you from pursuing your goals. Elena thought about human history again, the long migrations, the relentless expansion, the way humans had overcome every obstacle through determination and cooperation. Your smile that calmed my cubs is not a sign of friendship, Sylthane continued. It is a display of teeth by a species that evolved to bite and kill. Your calm confidence in the face of danger is not bravery. It is the natural behavior of a creature that knows it can be lethal when necessary. The words sent a chill through Elena. She looked at her own hands, thinking about the strength in them, the way she instinctively evaluated every person and situation for potential threats or advantages. The galaxy sees humans as a young, weak species that achieved space travel through luck and determination, Silthane said. They are wrong. Humans are apex predators who have learned to hide their nature behind civilization and technology. But the cubs recognize what you truly are because predators always recognize other predators. Elena felt something fundamental shifting in her understanding of herself and her species. What does this mean? What am I supposed to do with this information? It means, human cadet, that you have a choice to make. Silthane turned to face her fully. You can continue pretending to be what others expect you to be, a harmless student from a harmless species. Or you can accept what you are and learn to use it properly. And if I choose to accept it? Silthane's expression showed approval for the first time. Then I will train you as I would train one of my own cubs. I will teach you to hunt, to lead, to understand the true nature of predators. And perhaps, human Elena Vasquez, you will become the first of your species to earn the title of Hunt Sister. Elena looked out at the stars and realized that her simple life as a cadet was over. Whatever she chose now would change not just her own future, but potentially the future of all humanity in the galaxy. The question was she ready to embrace what she really was? 2 months later, Elena stood in the Academy's main assembly hall, facing representatives from over 30 species. News of the human recognition event had spread throughout the Galactic Alliance, bringing diplomats, scientists, and military leaders to witness what many considered impossible. Elena had changed during her training with Combat Master Silthane. Her movements were more controlled, her awareness sharper. She carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly what they were capable of. Most notably, her smile had evolved. It was still friendly, but there was something behind it now that made other species pay attention in a way they never had before. The 3 Cathera cubs sat beside her on the demonstration platform, now noticeably larger and more mature. Their bond with Elena had only grown stronger over the weeks of training. They responded to her commands instantly and protected her with the devotion of a pack protecting their alpha. Honored delegates, announced Academy Commandant Zorith, a tall crystalline being whose voice resonated through the hall. Today you will witness the culmination of an unprecedented interspecies cooperation program. Cadet Elena Vasquez of Earth will demonstrate tactical coordination with Cathera hunting partners. Elena stepped forward, and the cubs rose to flank her in perfect formation. She could feel the tension in the room. Some species were fascinated by what they were about to see. Others were clearly nervous about watching apex predators work together. Begin Scenario Alpha 7, Commandant Zorith commanded. The hall's floor transformed into a holographic battlefield, a maze of obstacles, hidden targets, and simulated enemies that would challenge even experienced military units. It was a test designed for full combat teams with advanced weapons and coordination systems. Elena and the cubs had no weapons except their natural abilities. No communication devices except their understanding of each other. No tactical computers except their evolved predator instincts. Elena looked at her hunting partners and grinned, not the polite smile of a diplomat, but the predatory expression of an apex hunter ready to begin a chase. The cubs responded with soft growls of excitement, their crystal claws extending slightly in anticipation. Hunt, Elena said simply. What happened next was a masterclass in predator coordination that left the assembled delegates speechless. Elena and the cubs moved through the obstacle course like a single organism, each anticipating the other's actions perfectly. They communicated through subtle body language, brief eye contact, and an understanding that went deeper than words. When they encountered the first group of holographic enemies, Elena did not hesitate or plan elaborate strategies. She simply pointed, and the cubs flowed around the targets like water around stones, striking with precision and moving on before the simulated enemies could react. Elena herself moved with deadly grace, using human endurance and intelligence combined with predator instincts that had been awakened by her training. She climbed obstacles the cubs could not reach, squeezed through spaces too small for them, and provided overwatch while they engaged targets below. The watching delegates saw something that challenged everything they thought they knew about humans. This was not a weak species relying on technology to survive. This was a persistence predator in perfect coordination with other apex hunters, demonstrating why humans had conquered their planet and reached for the stars. "Remarkable," whispered Ambassador Kethlon of the Altarian Republic. "The human moves like she was born to hunt alongside Cathara. How is this possible?" Dr. Kethvar, who had been studying Elena for months, leaned forward in his observation seat. "Because, Ambassador, she was. Humans and Kithara evolved similar hunting strategies on completely different worlds. Persistence, intelligence, pack coordination. They are kindred predator species." The demonstration continued for 20 minutes, with Elena and the Cubs completing objectives that should have taken a full military squad with advanced equipment. They worked with the efficiency of a hunting pack that had been together for years, not months. When the simulation ended, Elena stood in the center of the maze surrounded by her 3 hunting partners. All of them were breathing hard but showed no signs of fatigue. The Cubs looked to her for approval, and she reached out to scratch behind their ears, a gesture of affection between packmates. The assembly hall was completely silent for a long moment. Then Combat Master Silthane rose from her place of honor and approached the platform. The massive Cathara warrior moved with ceremonial precision, carrying something that made several delegates gasp in recognition. It was a Hunt Sister pendant, a crystal claw suspended from a chain of precious metal. In the entire history of the Cathara species, it had never been awarded to an alien. "Elena Vasquez of Earth," Silthane announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "You have proven yourself worthy of recognition as a true hunter. You understand the ways of the pack, the patience of the stalk, and the precision of the kill. By the ancient laws of our people, I name you Hunt Sister." Silthane placed the pendant around Elena's neck, then performed the formal Kithara bow, a gesture of respect between equal predators. The Cubs chittered with excitement, clearly understanding the significance of the ceremony. The political implications hit the assembly like a shockwave. Alliance Ambassador Takar stood immediately, his insectoid features showing confusion and concern. "Combat Master, surely you cannot mean to extend full hunting pack privileges to a human. The security implications alone are exactly why this matters," interrupted Admiral Vextar of the Granite Defense Force. The massive stone-like being had been quiet throughout the demonstration, but now his voice rumbled with authority. "For 2 years we have treated humanity as a client species under our protection. We have been fools." Admiral Vexitar gestured toward Elena and the Cubs. "What we just witnessed was not a training exercise. It was a revelation. Humans are not prey animals who achieve technology through luck. They are apex predators who have been politely pretending to be harmless while they learned our weaknesses." "That's not..." Elena started to protest, but Admiral Vextar held up a massive stone hand. "Human, how long did it take your species to spread across your entire planet?" he asked. Elena thought for a moment. "About 50,000 years, I think. From Africa to every continent. And how long did it take you to develop space travel once you began focusing on technology?" "A few hundred years." "And how many wars did your species fight while developing that technology?" Elena was quiet for a moment, understanding where this was leading. "Pretty much constantly. We've been fighting someone somewhere for our entire recorded history. A species of persistence predators, constantly at war, spreading across an entire planet in just 50,000 years, then achieving space travel in a few centuries." Admiral Vextar's stone features showed something that might have been respect. "Delegates, we have not been protecting humanity. We have been temporarily restraining the most dangerous species in the galaxy." The implications of his words rippled through the assembly. Species that had seen humans as junior partners suddenly began re-evaluating every interaction they had ever had with Elena's people. Elena looked around at the faces staring at her, some fearful, some calculating, some showing new respect. She realized that everything was about to change, not just for her, but for every human in the galaxy. Combat Master Silthane approached her again, this time carrying a different kind of message crystal. "Hunt Sister Elena, there is a situation developing in the Outer Rim that requires specialized attention, a crisis that the regular Alliance forces cannot handle using conventional methods." Elena took the crystal, feeling its weight. "What kind of situation?" the kind that requires persistence hunters who understand that some prey must be tracked across star systems and brought to ground no matter how long it takes. Silthane's eyes glowed with anticipation. Are you ready for your first true hunt? Elena looked at the three cubs who had become her packmates, then at the assembly of galactic leaders who were seeing humanity clearly for the first time. She thought about her species, explorers, warriors, survivors who had never learned how to give up. She smiled that predatory smile that had started everything, feeling the weight of the hunt sister pendant against her chest. Yes, she said simply, we're ready. As she led her pack toward their first mission, Elena knew that the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The age of humans as protected junior partners was over. The age of humanity as recognized apex predators had begun. And somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, threats that had considered themselves beyond the reach of civilized species were about to learn what it meant to be hunted by creatures who had evolved to never, ever give up.